And we're live. Hello, people. I have not been on in a while, and I apologize, but I am back. And I am a tad bit tired from weekend events leading into this week. It's been a busy week so far, and I am excited about just being on here and being able to talk again. I really didn't have the time to do it over the weekend, but I got to see some little kids glean from my one of my books. I wrote a children's book last year about African art, and they were able to do a workshop with me, and we had so much fun. It was I think the youngest was like 2 or 3, and the oldest was about maybe 7 or 8. But it was so much fun. But kids will be kids, so they have high energy. And then I came back from out of town and got to do some real interesting things yesterday. I'm not going to speak on it, but let's just say it goes along with the African art theme. Um, but today we are not talking about me. We are talking about several things that I have experienced some of the things that we're talking about. So I wanted to really talk about uh black votes turning to Trump. I wanted to do that last week, but I couldn't. Didn't have time, ran out of it. But we're gonna do this today. So I know you see Candace Owens in the title and everything. So yeah, we're just going to be diving in to a lot of I wouldn't call them hot topics, but there are some things that need to be discussed. I'll put it like that. And why not bring it on my channel? And as you know or don't know, I am Kristen Nicole Mann. I just started talking, and I help Black women find their true authenticity through all things creative. As you can look behind me, I am a painter, visual artist by trade, but I also have brains. So I love to talk about things in pop culture, especially when it has to do with Black women. I advocate for us in various ways, the best that I can. I don't try to claim I know everything, but I read a lot. I research a lot, and I'm around a lot of smart minded people, wisdom. So, why not bring that on my channel? Right? So, we're going to start with Candace Owens. All right. So, Candace Owens, I want to show you all. She was recently on the Breakfast Club. Now, that episode posted today, and I'm sure she did it a while ago, but it posted today. But I find it really interesting that she's having like a second win moment because people, specifically Black media, is inviting her to their platforms now. Now, a little bit of backstory of why I'm bringing this up is because in 2020, I bought her book, The Blackout, and it's how Black America can make its second escape from the Democrat plantation. So this is the book, um, and I actually it's dusty because long story short, it almost got ruined. A ceiling of a place that I lived in fell because of a storm, and this book was sitting on my desk, and it's like it almost got ruined. But I wanted to talk about this because with Candace, you can't really say that you agree with her. There's a lot of people that don't like her. There's a lot of people that don't like her views. There's a lot of Black Democrats. So when it comes to discussing Candace Owens, I didn't necessarily have a fear, but I really truly enjoyed this book. And I just didn't feel like debating about it. So when people, are now bringing her up of certain things, I kind of laugh because, she's, I read this book long time ago and it had a lot of interesting chapters. Some of our life has paralleled, and I specifically wanted to bring up of how she brought up the inflation before we found ourselves in this country really here at that point. But I mean, the chapters are, conservatism, on family, on feminism, over civilization, socialism and government handouts, education, media, excuses, faith, culture, slavery. So those are actually the chapter titles. And I mean, if you didn't know history before you read this book, it definitely like points you to researching on your own about my phone fell, about these certain topics. And I mean, she goes over Emmett Till. She goes over what the inflation that happened in Venezuela and why it's probably going to happen in America. She goes over feminism, about how it destroyed us as Black America. I mean, it's so much in this book. So I really like it's not kind of, I encourage you to go on your own. Don't follow the mass, don't follow the crowds, and really read this book. And then you come to your own conclusion. Now for me, I'll read you the back. It says, while Democrats have long acknowledged our struggles and the crimes enacted against us, they have done very little to provide actual remedies or prepare us for a future that doesn't center on our brokenness. As we approach the 2020 election, I'm asking the Black community to consider the realities of our current economic state, the condition of our schools and neighborhoods, the number of our young men who are incarcerated. For too long, we have been lied to by the Democrats who have relied upon our votes to maintain them in power. For too long, we have believed that the state is sovereign. We do not belong to the Democrat Party. We do not belong to socialism. We answer to the true God and not the God of the government. So this is like, what I just read you is the actual introduction. So take it how you want it. But today she brought up on the Breakfast Club, there were just everything's falling off my desk. There were some things that were brought up about the literacy rates, well, specifically the Black men, Black boy literacy rates, which is near and dear to my heart because I have published children's books, and one of my first two children's books were based upon a Black boy character. And I really was able to relate to that because I found that within my research that Black boys, their literacy rates are very low. And if they do go to school, they're not necessarily encouraged to succeed. Unless they're an athlete or unless they're, getting money within the school in some kind of way, which we know most Black boys, they do gravitate towards sports. So when I saw that with publishing the books that I had an idea for, I was very discouraged because one, I was like, okay, are people going to even buy this book? Two, do parents even, like Black parents, even care about buying books, children's books for their children to have at home anymore? And it's a ever going conversation, ever going action that needs to be in place. It's not going to ever be completely solved. I don't believe it will, not in my lifetime at least. Who knows? But she brought up a lot, and she touched on Black media. Now, I went to college for journalism. If you don't know, now you know. And that was what my dream was, to set out outside of visual art, because when I was graduating and, trying to maybe think about going that path, people were like, that's not going to make money. Da, 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 da. So I was like, how could I go to college and still have some type of creative type of job? And my thought was journalism. So I literally went to my guidance counselor and I said, I want to be on TV and be a news anchor. And, he kind of just was like underwhelmed. Um, and he was like, well, where do you want to go to school? And I'm like, aren't you supposed to tell me where to go to school? Give me some guidance. And he just was very underwhelmed. He told me about the community college and he told me about maybe one more college, but he was not really excited. And I kind of walked away from that whole meeting like, what am I going to do? But I am a self starter. So I went on and did what I needed to do. And I ended up going and ended up debating on a debate team and all these other things that helped me in the future. And I dropped out. Now, me and Candace have that in common. I can't remember if she completely finished, but I don't think she did. No, I don't think she did. I think she dropped out too for journalism. And just to see how far she's gotten, I can't help but to admire that. I'm sorry. Well, I'm not sorry, really. I can't help to admire how far someone has gotten that set out on the same path that I did, and then also like, didn't finish. And now her name is a household name, whether good or bad, but she knows her stuff. Like, I'm not gonna lie, that book really opened my eyes, and it also confirmed a lot of things, including her interviews, her podcast, all the things. So when she touched on Black media and how their reporting is one-sided, I really thought that I should really just intertwine all of these topics, because I wanted to, like I told you before, I wanted to go over the Blacks voting for Trump. And there is some interesting things out here on the TV right now circulating in the journalism sphere. But I thought BET had a interesting segment on voting, and I thought it was a little biased. I'm not gonna lie. But this part, I'm trying to find it now so I can play it. This part really stuck out to me, y'all, because for one, on my channel, I encourage Black women to be creative. And what was said in this interview was kind of interesting, and it goes along with the Black church one that I just did, the Black church live that I just did about Umar Johnson and all these other things. So take a listen.
Looking for an easier way to get that
gosh, hold on. Of course, commercials.
Voter education. And you want to make sure you watch to say ballot accepted before you walk off. After Georgia and several other states enacted new voting restrictions and redistricting maps. Just like the old African proverb, it takes a village to raise a child. Well, it takes a village for every vote to count. I think the Black church should always be a place where it's safe, where you don't have to be embarrassed to say what you don't know. We often hear that Black women are the backbone, particularly of the Democratic Party. How do you perceive that? I would say, as Black women, we're the backbone of almost everything.
Okay. So notice how she said Black women are the backbone of everything. Now, this is a toxic, I'm just going to be real with y'all. This has been a toxic generational hand down role per se that has been placed on upon Black women, upon Black women, upon Black women. Now, when it comes to your life, here's where the Black church kind of tax themselves a little bit too much because they're involved too much. Like they want to tell you who to vote for. They want to tell you how you're supposed to just do all these things that's outside of the Bible. Like they really want to be all up and through your life, and put kind of like the teaching on a surface base. These are some Black churches. Before the Black church comes to me and say, no, we don't. Well, some do. They want to be in control of every single decision that you make. And for them to laugh after saying like, Black women are the backbone of everything. I don't know if that was like a nervous laugh or or a laugh that just kind of was like, duh, we run everything, specifically in a Black church. So I was like, okay, what does this have to do with the Black vote though? Like, what does this have to do? So let's continue.
Exactly. It's because of the burdens we carry, the weight we carry, and that we're seeing it through multiple lenses of oppression.
Okay, so going back to what she just quickly said, why are we carrying burdens? We have to question, like, are all these burdens that we're carrying, are we supposed to be carrying these? Who told us to carry burdens for other people? Especially when they're adults, they're grown people. They're not, and then some of them are not blood related. Where do we get this from? So this kind of shows that it spills over into the politics, the political arena, because we want to carry the burden for these presidential candidates as well. We see it at the local level and we see it especially at the presidential level.
Get these voices out here. That's right. For grassroots groups like Black Voters Matter, the outreach has been ongoing, kicking off the year in South Carolina for the first in the nation primary, a critical test of Black support. Are y'all excited about going to vote? Yes. Yeah. Black people are in it. Like we're in it to win it. Latasha Brown is co-founder of the organization. When I look at Black South Carolinians, they actually got more of a vote share, particularly in Democratic primary, than their white counterparts. That we showed up, even though all of the news was saying that we wouldn't show up, right? Do you feel Black voters are underestimated? Oh, absolutely. You can't.
So here's a Black woman. You see how the theme just keeps like there was only one man I think they interviewed in this whole segment. Where's the men? Like, where's the men? And these are some of the things that Candace Owens covers in her book, The Family Structure. Does the Democratic Party really encourage us to get back to a standard family structure? We have to question and challenge these things. One of the things that still plays a role in our family structure as a Black community today is Lyndon B. Johnson signing the welfare, creating that whole program. And you see a lot of people benefit from that, not just Black people, but white people mainly. They benefit from that. But one of the things in this program is they do not want you to be married. They do not want you to be in any relationship with your children's father or a man itself when it comes to you being a woman. And you see a lot of Black women take the route of taking the help of the government over taking a really hard look at how long am I going to take this benefit? What's my plan? What's my outlook? Like a whole sit down about like, how long am I going to accept this? Now, a year or two, you might have to, but I know one of my mentors, she said it was just not for her, and she would look around the area of where you have to sign up for this stuff, and she was just like, it was something in me that I just would not allow myself to give my life over to these people. And so when it comes to Black voters, Black women voters, some of the things that was instilled in us to always depend on the government, you see that kind of play out in the votes. Now, I know as a Black community, we're always told we were always Democrat. That was just a thing. People have said it, they was verbal with it, and you just never question why. And my first time voting was when Obama was in office. And I remember everybody was excited. They were like, "Oh, you're gonna vote for Obama, right? You're gonna vote for." It was almost like a thing like, if you don't vote for Obama, we're done as a country. And it was a sense of pressure. It was a sense of pressure because I know all I saw is what they said on TV about who he was, like, he's from Chicago. He was married to I don't know why I came on. He was married to his wife. Both of them went to law school. They, did most of their community work in Chicago. They're a wholesome family. So they really fed us this dream that Black people always wanted to see. And the media, the Black media, definitely catapulted his whole campaign, because it was like, wow, Jeezy, I remember Young Jeezy made a song, "My President is Black." All this stuff was going on. So you felt pressured as a Black, I was a Black young adult at that time. I felt extreme pressure to vote for Obama and not vote for anyone else. So you look at now, there are Black voters that are switching like whole political sides. They're no longer wanting to be Democrat because of what we're in now, and they want to vote with the only other option that we have, and that's Trump. And I don't talk to too many excited voters. I'm not going to lie to you. People are not excited. They are not excited. They are frustrated. Some of them are disgruntled. Some of them are optimistic still, but the majority, they are not excited. They are not excited. So I'm going to play this last clip of this couple, and then we're going to go on to like the DEI cuts, and then we'll get off of here, because I don't like to make these things long. But listen to this interesting part of the segment.
So even though you have political differences, it's not a deal breaker. No, it's not a deal breaker. No, absolutely not. So in 2008 and 2012, you voted for Barack Obama. 2016, I voted for Donald Trump. Hillary Clinton. 2020, Donald Trump. Biden. And who will you vote for in 2024? Donald Trump. Donald Trump. You may vote for the former president. Why do you say that? My views on certain things have changed. I am very much so riding the fence. What are you struggling with being in a pattern of doing the same thing that I've been doing, because it's kind of like second nature. Like when you go in a poll, you hit Democrat, something has to happen. I mean, it's just so expensive to survive. And we're planning on having kids. I don't want to live in a stressful environment trying to run two pennies together to try to make it either. When did you make that decision to check a different box? Donald Trump's first term. I'm saying first term because I'm pretty sure he'll be in there for a second term here soon. But in either case, post-Obama, I decided that the party just wasn't suitable to the goals. How did you come to that conclusion? Because at the end of the day, former President Obama was the first African-American president in history. That's just true. I mean, as a Black man, I would assume that meant something. Absolutely. You know, I attended the inauguration on his first term. I grew up outside of Washington, D.C. in the 80s and 90s, came through the system as it.
So you listen to how which confirms some of Candace Owens' point about Black media being biased. Do you hear how the interviewer was more like aggressive in a sense of like, but how? How are y'all coming to this conclusion? Not really listening. She kind of cut him off at one instance. And do you want someone really covering your story that is not really trying to play the neutral role when it comes to interviewing? Because I personally believe when you interview, from the little bit of college that I had, when you interview someone, it's not about you. It's about like the person and shining light on a different perspective. And then you come to a conclusion at the end that whether you disagree or not, the person's story was heard. And in this case, you have a Black married couple that are speaking of switching their vote. And the interviewer is like, but why? How did Black media get to this point?
Institutional Democrat, went through a lot of the experiences that young Black men go through, good and bad, ended up leaving that environment, grew up, started looking at the world through a new lens. Black men are a coveted demographic for both parties. President Biden received 91% of the Black vote in 2020. Former President Trump only got 8%, but Black men supported him at 3 times the rate of Black women. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are investing a record $7 billion into HBCUs.
Okay, so you have here them showing that in 2020, most Black men voted for Trump anyway. Some Black women did, but mostly Black men. So now we have an influx of not only Black men, but we have Black women also following the Black men in voting for Trump. And you see this interesting parallel. And I think it's going to be interesting to see all of it play out because unfortunately, we only have 2 options and it's 2020 all over again. But the play that Joe Biden and Kamala did with the HBCUs, there are students in this segment that they put kind of like in the spotlight on discussing their vote and what they want to do. And they're not excited about it. They're not really excited about voting for Biden or Trump, but it's like, if you want to vote, you have to vote for either one. So we'll see how this plays out. I think BET, they did a good job with this segment, but I do think it was biased because they kind of made the Black couple look crazy, you know, and kind of made their part of the interview stick out more and say, oh, they turned their back on the Black community. That's not necessarily the case. When you do your own research, you start to wake up to certain things and you have to think about what you want your life to be. And as a Black woman, sometimes I succumb to people's perspective more than mine's. I would listen and just follow. I wouldn't look into what people were saying. I would just want to be with the masses because of XYZ. So we have to be careful of that. And I'm not telling you who to vote for in this live today, but I really just want you to think about, like, use our critical thinking skills and think about, what has this side done and what has that side done? How is this affecting me? Especially at the local level, like, that actually counts more when we vote at the local level than it does with the presidential case, that's the case, campaign. So off of that, the last thing I want to talk about is the DEI cuts. And the reason why I want to talk about the DEI cuts is because Black women are at the forefront of a lot of the diversity, equity, and inclusion positions. A lot of us are in these jobs. A lot of us took offers over the pandemic, when George Floyd started, and they gave a lot of them hefty salaries to do the work. And they have been doing the work, but what happens when overnight your all your work is just now a memory? What happens? And this is what happened when the Alabama governor signed a bill to get rid of diversity, equity, and inclusion funds for college. They also have gotten rid of it for public school systems, state agencies, and all of the things. So Alabama governor signs law banning college DEI funding. The legislation will take effect October 1st. It reflects a broader trend of state bills moving to limit or prohibit diversity programming in public education. So Alabama Governor Kay Ivey signed a law on Tuesday that will ban public colleges from funding diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts, continuing a nationwide push by the conservatives to remove such programs from higher education. The bill's list of divisive concepts includes the ideas that a person of any race, sex, or religion is inherently privilege, or that anyone should acknowledge a sense of complicity based on those traits. The measure will take effect October 1st. Last thing, the result would be a campus environment devoid of intellectual freedom and a state law so draconian that it gives Florida a run for its money. The organization said in February that after the measure's introduction, the bill SB 129 won't prevent student or employee organizations from hosting DEI events as long as state funds are not used. Ooh. But prior to the governor's signature, PEN in caps, America said the legislation will still stymie programming for students. The bill would prohibit DEI offices and programming that determines participation based on identity group, which could include info sessions for international students or university recognition of the Black Student Union, PEN America said. And you should public universities attempt to get around the severe measures in this bill by using federal or private funding, they will find themselves stymied by a clause prohibiting them from procuring any money to fund such activities. Public colleges will still be allowed to divide housing, athletic, and social opportunities by sex under the new law, but they will be prohibited from letting people use a restroom that differs from their sex as assigned at birth. So Alabama, it seems like the governor, this is just my take, it seems like the governor is doing this because there is a fear of something else happening. So here's the thing. I actually told my mother this like not too long ago. I said, if Black people want to do anything like I did over the weekend, as far as like a workshop about African art and, which falls under the diversity, we are going to have to foot the bill. This is just going to happen. And we don't know as far as like nationwide completely all of this is going to happen, but you're starting to see it in places with most African Americans. They're mainly living there. You're starting to see it. Florida has a lot of African Americans, Caribbean, Black and brown people. You have Alabama that has a lot of Black and brown people. You have all these different diversities, and you're seeing those states run towards the mark of getting rid of this. My question is, as a community, are we going to come together and talk about this? Because some of us don't want to see it to go. Some actually do. Some Black people actually don't think DEI is important. I'm sorry to tell y'all, but some people don't even think that. Not all Black people are on board with this. And there's a distinction between going back to this book and going back to research itself about the civil rights movement. I even went to the African American Museum about 3 or 4 times, just to see like what they said about that movement. I learned a lot. I love the museum. You should go visit that too. But diving into the civil rights movement, I learned that it started off for Black people only. But in this country, if you don't know nothing else from this video today, anything Black people do only for Black people, it has to be a other entity involved for them to approve it. We, time and time again, we have started things only for Black folks, and it will get completely taken over by another mission, another race, another something, for it to actually be successful. This is what happened with the civil rights movement. Whether y'all want to agree or not, you could go look it up, Google it. It started to become everyone's civil rights movement. Now, the problem that lies there is that everyone wasn't dealing with what Black people were dealing with. They weren't. But they had something that they wanted civil rights for. And so when these presidents and all the government gets involved and all these things, there's things that are signed off that is fine print. That means not only Black people are going to benefit from this, you have to include XYZ. So now, with the diversity, equity, and inclusion being cut, it makes me think about how it got to the point of everyone in diversity, equity, and inclusion. And there was a point where it was for Black people getting college opportunities, Black people getting, just basic things that we've been fighting for. But then it turned into this whole other movement that shook these conservative states. And it's unfortunate that people's jobs are getting taken away. But Black women are at the forefront of these jobs. And we all got to have a cookout, a kumbaya, a come together or something to strategize our futures. because I did a video on industries that if you want to branch into entrepreneurship, industries we're just not in. Right now, we're in an era where we have to think outside of the box, whether we want to or not. Some of it is going to feel like it's forced, but sometimes that's what it takes for us to wake up. Sometimes that's what it takes for us to realize, like, we're never going to have anything to ourselves that they want or that they notice is getting successful, and they're gonna always yank us back like a yo-yo. And prime example of this is, I wasn't even gonna bring that up, but let me bring it up. It's the federal case that's happening now with the, what is that? Hold on. I already should know this off the top of my head. Why am I? Okay, so the grant program, but let me get her name because I want to. Okay, so the Fearless Fund is a grant program that was created for Black women entrepreneurs specifically. And someone is actually suing her and using the Civil Rights Act of 1866 against her, which is a Black woman. And let me see if her name's in this. Why is her name not in this? Hold on. Because I want to give her name because I don't want to disrespect her like that. I think it's Ariane. Ariane Simone is the CEO of the Fearless Fund. And so they're actually suing her. It's a federal case. Someone is actually suing her with the Civil Rights Act. And they're saying this is discriminatory against everyone else. And, this is a hefty case for someone to go through, and it to be federal. That's a lot of funds. That's a lot of time. And this is a prime example of how we are not allowed in this country to only support Black women. It's a prime example. It on Black anything, just Black only anything. And they're really fighting her right now. And it's an ongoing case. And just as of recent, she's been on a couple Good Morning America, a couple of the morning shows to explain. But over the past 4 years, the Fearless Fund has partnered with corporations to supply diverse business owners 3.7 million in grants. Now, according to Simone, all but 2 of the firm's partners have backed out. So the corporate is backing out of these missions. That's where DEI really started to get cut. They're backing out these corporations that have the funds. They're backing out of anything that supports diversity, equity, and inclusion. So we have to know we're in a different time where stuff like this has happened in history before, but it's like people get amnesia and they don't research. They get used to a certain way of life, and when the rug is pulled like this, it's kind of like back to square one. And the whole reason why I want to continue with this channel is to be that voice of reason, not God, but be that voice of reason and say, look, I'm out here in the trenches with you. A lot of my workshops got canceled the end of last year overnight. because they just don't have the funds. Anything you're going to start seeing diversity used less and less and less. You're going to see the language start changing. You're going to see it go just to inclusion. They're going to cut the diversity. They're going to even cut the equity part. They're just going to call it inclusion. And that is up for you to look into what that all means for wherever it's coming from. Whatever that company is saying inclusion is, that's what it's going to be. And you have no right to go up against it. That's how it's going to be. This is not stuff that I'm just telling you. Look it up, Google it, dive into it, and see what your thoughts are. But this upcoming election is going to be very interesting, and we're going to have to see it play out. But we're going to also have to be strategic in how we move, especially as Black women. We have to take a look at these things. I know we try to run from it sometimes, but we have to take a look at it. So I hope you enjoyed today's episode. And if you want to follow me, I am on TikTok, Kristen Nicole Mann, Instagram, Kristen Nicole Mann. And of course, like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. This is why we're here. Okay, so I'll talk to you later and have a blessed rest of your day.